The grand wedding hall sparkled under the crystal chandeliers, reflecting the gleam of thousands of rose petals adorning every corner. Yet, amid the splendor and the sacred vows spoken at the altar, a pair of empty eyes held the simmering fire of an unextinguished rivalry. Park Yin, draped in an elegant white gown that flowed gracefully, stood tall beside Jungkook, who looked dashing in a luxurious tuxedo. They were the newlyweds pretending to be happy in front of their guests. "You look resigned," Jungkook whispered, his voice low, almost drowned out by the applause that followed their vows. A faint smile, bordering on mockery, curled on his lips. Yin turned, her sharp gaze striking back. "And you look smug. Is this one of your victories?" Jungkook let out a soft chuckle. "Victory? I'd call it an unwanted draw. We're both trapped, Yin." Both were heirs apparent to their family businesses. Park Group operated in the construction sector, while Jeon Corp was a property development company. The two companies often collaborated, thanks to the long-standing friendship between their fathers since their youth. And now, in order to secure their positions as successors, Yin and Jungkook had to comply with an arranged marriage set by their parents. A sacred bond built on the foundation of business interests, not love. Back in college, they were already fierce rivals, constantly competing in the same classes, and peace was never an option between them. Ironically, that very rivalry had now been sealed in marriage. That night, the luxurious penthouse prepared for them felt silent, cold. Yin stepped inside, lifting the heavy weight of her wedding gown, a burden that mirrored the weight of the marriage itself. Beside her, Jungkook walked in with an equally cold expression. They exchanged a few glances, brief and reluctant, their eyes reflecting only exhaustion and unwillingness. The door to the master bedroom opened, revealing a spacious room dominated by a king-size bed. That bed, which should have symbolized intimacy, now felt like a battlefield waiting for its boundaries to be defined. Yin turned to face Jungkook, removing her bridal veil and placing it on the nearest sofa. "So, what now?" she asked, her voice sounding more tired than she expected. Jungkook set his phone down on the bedside table, his gaze sharp as he looked at Yin. "About our agreement?" "No change," Yin replied quickly. "We can share the room, but nothing more. No touching, no anything." Jungkook nodded, crystal clear. "I have no intention of mixing business with personal feelings." "Good," Yin replied, her tone equally frosty. "You stay on that side. I'll take this side. No one crosses the line." That night, they slept in the same bed, yet separated by an invisible chasm wider than any ocean. Yin lay with her back to Jungkook, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, feeling hollow and alone. This marriage, which was supposed to mark the beginning of happiness, somehow felt like the end of everything. Weeks passed in an awkward routine. In the mornings, they had breakfast at the same table, exchanging only minimal conversation about work schedules or economic news. At the office, they occasionally crossed paths as promising young CEOs in training alongside their fathers, attending the same meetings, and sometimes discussing joint projects. But their interactions remained strictly professional and formal, with not a trace of personal connection. In the evenings, they returned to their home, each absorbed in their own world, ending the day in the same bed, divided by an invisible line neither of them dared to cross. Yet, a month after their cold marriage, without realizing it, something slowly began to shift. "You're not eating?" One night, Jungkook's voice broke the silence. Yin had just come out of the bathroom, dressed in silk pajamas. She turned to look at Jungkook, who was sitting on the small sofa in the corner of the room, eyes fixed on the tablet in his hands. "Not hungry," Yin replied curtly. "You should eat. We've got an important meeting with the Japanese investors tomorrow, remember? You'll need energy." Jungkook still didn't look up. "I know," Yin replied shortly, with a hint of irritation. She was annoyed by how Jungkook always acted superior and controlling. "I ordered porridge for you. It's on the dining table." Yin fell silent. She hadn't expected that. Since when did he care? What for? She asked, though a touch of softness slipped into her otherwise stiff tone. Jungkook finally looked up, and their eyes met. There was a flicker in his gaze that Yin couldn't quite define. "Just a formality. We can't let the future CEO of Park Group faint in front of investors from not eating. I don't want you getting skinny from starving after marrying me." His eyes returned to the tablet screen. Yin scoffed, but couldn't deny she felt something. It wasn't pure concern, but it wasn't complete indifference either. A kind of pragmatic concern, maybe? She decided not to overthink it, but as she ate the warm porridge, a different kind of warmth spread, not just from the food, but from somewhere deep inside her heart. A few days later, Yin began to notice small changes in their nightly routine. Jungkook always came into the bedroom very late, sometimes just before dawn. Even then, he would quietly lie down without a word, as if trying not to disturb her. At first, Yin didn't care. They were only living together because of an arranged marriage, and she had no obligation to worry about him. But night after night, when she woke up and found the other side of the bed still neat and cold, a sense of unease started to grow, something she couldn't explain, but it bothered her enough to linger in her thoughts. That night, after staring at the empty side of the bed for more than 20 minutes, Yin finally got up. She pulled on a cardigan over her pajamas and walked out of the bedroom, heading toward the study in their penthouse. A faint light glowing from the slightly ajar door confirmed her suspicion. Jungkook was still awake. With hesitation, he knocked twice before gently pushing the door open. "You're still not sleeping?" Jungkook turned briefly from behind his desk. His hair was slightly messy, and faint dark circles were forming under his eyes. "There's still work to finish," he answered shortly. "You told me I shouldn't skip meals to the point of fainting," Yin said, leaning against the doorframe. "But you're staying up like this almost every night. Isn't that the same thing?" Jungkook exhaled softly, then turned his chair slightly so he could face her better. "This is different. I'm used to it." "Being used to it doesn't mean it's good," Yin shot back. "You're not a robot, Jungkook." There was a moment of silence between them. Jungkook's gaze lingered on her face, as if only now noticing the concern in her voice. Yin grew a bit flustered when their eyes met. She didn't understand why she had sounded so genuinely worried. "You're worried about me now?" Jungkook asked, his tone light. Yin looked away. "I just don't want our parents thinking I'm an incompetent wife if you get sick." Jungkook gave a faint smile and stood up from his chair. He slowly walked toward her. "All right, I'll get some rest." "Good," Yin muttered, quickly turning around and heading back to their bedroom. That night, when Jungkook finally lay down beside her, he didn't close his eyes right away. He turned his head slightly, quietly observing Yin's back. Her breathing was steady, and a few strands of her hair had fallen across her cheek. Without realizing it, a soft smile formed on his lips. For some reason, tonight felt different, and Yin, though facing away from Jungkook, could feel his gaze on her back. Slowly, as if wanting to be sure, Yin turned around, and sure enough, their eyes met in the dim light of the bedroom. No words were spoken, only silence. Not the usual cold stare, but one that was warm and gentle. And only then did they realize the distance between them was no longer what it used to be. Maybe just a few inches now, or even closer. There were no boundaries drawn like in the previous nights. Maybe because they forgot, or maybe because their hearts wanted to forget. The gaze lingered, too long to be called a coincidence. Jungkook's eyes traced the lines of Yin's face, then returned to her eyes. There was something there, and the same was reflected in Yin's gaze. She didn't look away, didn't flinch, just stayed where she was, as if waiting. But their pride was still too high. Eventually, Jungkook took a deep breath and turned his face toward the ceiling. "Good night, Yin," he murmured softly. Yin continued watching the side of his face for a moment longer before finally turning back around to face the other way. But this time, not as far. The distance had changed. "Good night, Jungkook," she replied quietly, almost a whisper. However, in the midst of these unspoken changes, a new pressure began to surface. Their parents, who were enthusiastic about the marriage, started to frequently ask about Yin's pregnancy. Yin felt suffocated. She still couldn't even imagine being physically affectionate, let alone doing that with him. No, not when neither of them had even made a single move toward intimacy. The pressure intensified when her mother began sending her messages recommending fertility supplement brands and articles about pregnancy. One night, just after stepping out of the bathroom, still wrapped in a towel around his waist, Jungkook found Yin still awake, sitting restlessly on the edge of the bed. When she noticed him, she quickly wiped away her tears, something that instantly made Jungkook concerned, whether he wanted to be or not. "What's wrong?" Jungkook asked, his voice softer than Yin had ever heard it, his face visibly worried. Yin flinched. "It's none of your business." "If it weren't my business, you wouldn't be crying in the same bedroom as me," Jungkook replied, walking closer and sitting beside her. "What happened?" Yin stayed silent, but eventually gave in. "My mom," she called again, asking if I'm pregnant. Her voice trembled. "Your mom keeps calling you too, right?" Jungkook sighed. "Yeah, every day. I just told her we're trying. And my mom keeps telling me to buy supplements and fertility vitamins," Yin added, her voice cracking. "She even keeps spamming me with articles about women's fertility." Jungkook sighed once again, then poked the inside of his cheek with his tongue. His eyes shifted to her, gazing at her deeply. What can we do? This is the price we pay. Our companies need stability and continuity. A marriage, and yes, an heir, is part of that plan. Yin fell silent. What he said was true. The purpose of their marriage was indeed all of that. Jungkook then stood up and walked toward the wardrobe, picking out a casual t-shirt and slipping it on. Yin watched his back, letting out a slow breath. They both knew the pressure that weighed on them, but neither of them was trying to find a way out of it. 2 months had passed since that night. They had returned to their usual routines, as if the conversation and the tears had just been fleeting shadows of the night. Jungkook was once again immersed in his work, and so was Yin, buried in deadlines and division meetings. That afternoon, as Yin sat behind her desk, eyes fixed on her laptop screen, her phone suddenly vibrated. The name Mom appeared on the display. She let out a deep sigh, as if already knowing what the conversation would be about. Still, she picked up the call. Yes, Mom? Her voice sounded tired. Yin, are you busy? Yin rubbed her temple. A little. I just wanted to ask, when are you going to see an OB-GYN? Yin fell silent. What for, Mom? To check your fertility, sweetheart. I just want to make sure you and Jungkook are doing okay. You know Jungkook's family is probably expecting news too, and it's been a few months since your wedding, right? Isn't it time for some signs? Her mother's tone was starting to sound more insistent. Yin took a deep breath. Yes, Mom, she replied softly. Don't delay it, sweetheart. Don't get too caught up in work. Remember, a woman's fertility doesn't last forever. I'll send you the contact for a good OB-GYN. My friend took her daughter there for a pregnancy program, and now she's expecting. When you're not busy, go see them, okay? Yes, Mom. Yin's voice grew even quieter. After ending the call, Yin sat still, and just as she had expected, her phone vibrated again with a message from her mother containing the OB-GYN's contact. Yin leaned back on her chair, eyes closed, trying to hold back the tightness in her chest. But suddenly, her eyes opened wide. A crazy idea popped into her head. Reckless, stupid, but perhaps the only way she could see to get a break from all this pressure. She remembered her close college friend, Yuju, who was now heavily pregnant. Yin sent her a message. Can we meet? There's something really important I need to talk to you about. They met at a secluded cafe, far from the crowds and prying eyes that might recognize them. Yuju arrived with her rounded belly, smiling warmly at the sight of Yin. Oh my gosh, Yin, it's rare for you to ask me to meet during your work hours like this, Yuju said, sipping her drink. What's going on? You look down. Yin took a deep breath. Yuju, I need your help, a kind of crazy help. Yuju raised an eyebrow, curious. Crazy how? Yin pulled a paper bag out of her purse. Inside were 2 unopened pregnancy tests. You're pregnant, right? Yuju nodded slowly, a bit confused. Obviously, just look at this belly, there's no hiding it. I want you to use these, Yin said, pushing the bag toward Yuju. I want you to take these pregnancy tests for me. Yuju looked at the bag, then back at Yin, her expression shifting from confusion to shock. You're joking, right? Why? What for? I need a positive result, Yin whispered, her voice trembling. My parents and Jungkook's parents, everyone keeps pressuring me to get pregnant. I can't take it anymore, Yuju. This is just to buy me time. I'll show them the positive result, say it's mine, and they'll stop asking, at least for a while. Yuju fell silent, staring at Yin with concern. Yin, this is a huge risk. What if they find out? What if Jungkook doesn't agree with this plan of yours? I know it's insane, Yin admitted, her eyes pleading, but I have no other option. I'm losing my mind from all the pressure. Please, Yuju, I just need a break. I can't sleep, and I can't focus at work. Seeing the desperation in her friend's eyes, Yuju let out a long sigh. All right, for you, but this is the first and last time, okay? Yin hugged her tightly. Thank you. Thank you so much. You're the best friend I have. Yuju went to the restroom with the 2 pregnancy tests. A few minutes later, she returned with a slightly anxious look on her face. Here you go, she said, handing over the tests, both showing 2 bold red lines. Positive. Yin took them, staring at the results with mixed feelings. A wave of relief swept over her, but so did a sharp pang of guilt. Thank you, Yuju, I owe you. Just make sure you really think things through before doing anything else, Yin, Yuju warned before they parted ways. This isn't a small game. At 5 in the afternoon, Yin finally returned to their penthouse. The place was still quiet as usual. She knew Jungkook wouldn't be home yet. He usually came back around 7 in the evening. Without much thought, Yin took off her shoes, walked into the bedroom, and tossed her handbag onto the bed, leaving it half open, some of the contents spilling onto the mattress. She wanted to hide the 2 pregnancy tests, but that could wait. Right now, she needed a hot bath. Her body felt drained, not just from work, but from the weight of her thoughts. She walked into the bathroom with heavy steps, undressed, and began filling the tub with warm water. She needed to relax, needed a moment where she didn't have to think about anything. But only a few minutes later, without Yin knowing, the front door opened. Jungkook had come home early today. His workload happened to be light, and his body was telling him it needed rest. He sighed softly as he stepped inside, soaking in the silence he usually only experienced late at night. His feet carried him straight to the bedroom, eager to lie down for a bit. But the moment he opened the door, his eyes immediately landed on Yin's bag, carelessly thrown onto the bed. Her phone, wallet, lipstick, and other items were scattered partially outside. Jungkook approached, intending to tidy up the mess so he could stretch out on the bed, but as he picked up the bag and started placing the items back inside, his hand suddenly froze. There, among Yin's personal belongings, were 2 pregnancy test sticks. Both showed the same result, 2 bright red lines, positive. Jungkook froze. His chest tightened immediately. His eyes locked on the tests, unblinking. His head filled with 1,000 questions he couldn't begin to process logically. Pregnant? But we've never even done it. His hand holding the tests began to tremble. A wave of heat surged through his chest. Shock, anger, confusion, and hurt all crashed into each other. He lifted his head and stared toward the bathroom. The sound of running water was still faintly audible. Yin was inside. But Jungkook couldn't stand up. His knees felt weak. He sat on the edge of the bed, eyes still glued to the pregnancy tests in his hand. His breathing was heavy, his fingers shaking. He tried to calm himself, but one question kept echoing in his mind. Whose baby is this? 20 minutes passed. The gentle trickle of water from the bathroom slowly stopped. Jungkook was still sitting on the edge of the bed, frozen, eyes vacant, the pregnancy test still clenched in his trembling hand. The bathroom door finally opened, revealing Yin wearing nothing but a white towel wrapped around her body. Her hair was still damp, her skin flushed slightly from the warm steam. But her steps halted the moment she saw him. Jungkook, she gasped. Her breath caught seeing her husband already home. You're back? Instinctively, Yin covered her chest with both arms, trying to shield herself. Normally, if she knew Jungkook was home, she would have worn her bathrobe first. But this time, she was careless. But her shock didn't end there. Her eyes quickly landed on the object in Jungkook's hand. 2 pregnancy tests, 2 red lines. Her heart stopped. Her body went cold. No words were needed. Jungkook's face said it all. His jaw was clenched, his eyes dark, his breathing heavy as if suppressing something about to explode. Yin panicked. That's not? Whose is it? Jungkook cut in, his voice low, almost a whisper, but sharp and cold as a blade. Jungkook, I can explain, Yin said quickly, stepping forward but stopping in her tracks when she saw the pain in his eyes. Explain? He stood up, holding the tests in front of him. 2 red lines. Yin, a positive pregnancy test. I've never touched you. So tell me, whose child is this? Who got you pregnant? There's no child, Jungkook. Those aren't mine, Yin cried, her voice trembling, eyes welling up with tears. Jungkook froze. His breathing was heavy, his mind in chaos. What did Yin mean when she said it wasn't hers? His eyes narrowed, trying to read the truth on his wife's face, but all he could see was pure fear and sadness. What do you mean, not yours? He finally asked, his voice quieter, still firm, but no longer cruel. Yin bit her lip, trying to suppress a sob, then let out a shaky breath. It's Yuju's, she finally said, her voice hoarse. Jungkook stood frozen. That name triggered a rush of memories. Yuju, of course, he knew her. They were classmates in college, and he knew Yuju was Yin's best friend. I had to do it, Yin continued quietly. I couldn't take it anymore. Our parents keep waiting for news that I'm pregnant. In that instant, Jungkook's anger melted away. The fire that had been burning in his chest turned into a different kind of ache, an ache of guilt. It felt like something punched him from the inside. He looked down, staring at the 2 test kits once more before gently placing them on the nightstand. Yin, he whispered, why didn't you talk to me about this plan first? Yin didn't answer. She just stood there frozen, biting her lip hard to keep the tears from falling again. But it didn't work. Once again, the tears escaped, tracing warm lines down her face, still flushed from the steam of the bath. I'm sorry, Jungkook said, his voice low and sincere. He took a step closer, locking eyes with her. As your husband, and as the man of this house, I'm sorry if you felt alone in here. That apology, so rare, so earnest, coming from Jungkook, made Yin's heart crumble. She covered her face with her hands, her body trembling with sobs. Tentatively, Jungkook raised his arms and gently pulled Yin into a hug. Thankfully, she didn't resist. She allowed herself to lean into his chest, as if she had needed that comfort all along. Jungkook softly stroked her back, then whispered, but this isn't a solution, Yin. If everyone believes you're pregnant, what will happen when your belly doesn't grow? They'll know you lied. Yin nodded slowly, silently acknowledging the truth in his words. I'll pretend to have a miscarriage, she murmured, her voice barely audible, almost hopeless. Upon hearing that, Jungkook let out a deep sigh and looked up at the ceiling. God, my wife is seriously complicated and insane, he muttered, half exasperated, half amazed. Yet even so, he didn't let her go. Instead, he held her closer. Yin remained silent in Jungkook's embrace. Her breathing was slow yet heavy, while her chest thudded with an erratic, racing heartbeat. She could feel the warmth of her husband's body, the familiar masculine scent of him, and the strong beating of his heart against her cheek. Jungkook lowered his head slightly, letting out a quiet sigh before finally speaking. About our agreement, Yin stayed silent, though her arms around him didn't waver. Jungkook continued, his voice deeper, more sincere. I think it's time we let it go. Our agreement, not to touch each other, to keep things distant. I don't think it matters anymore. Yin's heart beat even faster. But still, she said nothing. At first, I thought it was the smart thing to do, Jungkook said quietly. Because we only got married due to family pressure, not because of love. We both had pride, egos too big to back down. And we used to be rivals in college. He paused for a moment, then gently stroked Yin's back, his voice softening. But somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as a rival, and started seeing you as my wife. And I was stupid for letting my pride stop me from admitting it. That agreement only pushed me to keep ignoring the feelings that started to grow. Silence blanketed them. Yin still hadn't said anything, only taking a deep breath as she tried to calm the storm in her chest. But her embrace remained firm, as if she too was afraid he might step away. After several long seconds, Yin finally spoke softly, but clearly. Me too. Jungkook blinked in surprise. He instinctively moved to pull back and look at her, to make sure he'd heard her right. But before he could, Yin only hugged him tighter, burying her face deeper into his chest. She was too shy to look him in the eye. Me too. My feelings have changed, she murmured, so softly it was almost a whisper. I don't know exactly when, but I started to feel comfortable, started to feel safe whenever you're near. Jungkook froze, his heart pounding in a rhythm just as loud as hers. His arms, which had been hanging awkwardly, now moved, pulling Yin into a tighter embrace. A small smile curled at the corner of his lips before he whispered, you know, I never thought you'd actually fall in love with me. Yin pinched his waist gently, still too shy to look him in the eye. Don't be too full of yourself. Jungkook chuckled softly. Too proud to admit it, huh? We're such a match, both stubborn as hell. They fell silent again, but this time, it wasn't because of awkwardness. It was because they felt at peace. In that silence, there was no more distance, no more cold agreement holding them apart. Jungkook took a slow breath, still holding Yin in that warm silence. Then, his voice came again, calm, but clear. So that means, we don't have to lie about your pregnancy anymore, right? Yin's cheeks immediately turned crimson. She knew exactly where this conversation was going, and her heart began to race. Her face felt hot, and she was sure it wasn't just her cheeks. Even her ears must have been bright red by now. And sure enough, Jungkook continued, I don't know how to say this without making you run away, but I'm serious. I want us to do it, Yin. Yin said nothing. Her body froze, words caught in her throat, but her heart was pounding as if it were about to explode. She bit her lower lip, unsure how to respond. Seeing Yin still silent, Jungkook continued, his voice gentle and sincere. But I'm not saying this just because I want a baby. That's not the only reason. He lowered his face, trying to catch Yin's eyes as she remained tucked in his embrace. I've wanted to be close to you for so long, to touch you, to be with you, but I kept holding myself back because of our agreement. He softly stroked her back, trying to calm his own erratic heartbeat. I want to build a family with you, not just a cold, distant marriage, but a real family, with you. Then, with a careful tone, Jungkook asked, "If you're willing, would you do it with me, Yin? But if you're not ready, I won't force you. I'll wait until you truly are." Still silent, Yin shut her eyes tightly. Her heart felt like it was being slammed by a storm. Then slowly, very slowly, she nodded. Jungkook paused, then smiled softly, but not just any smile. There was a teasing glint in it. "You? What do you mean, nodding like that? I can't be sure," he said, clearly teasing her. Yin opened her eyes, immediately pinching his waist in frustration. "Stop pretending you don't understand." Jungkook laughed quietly, amused by his wife's crimson face and adorably shy expression. "I just want to hear you say it out loud," he teased. "So it's clear, so I don't get the wrong idea." Yin sighed, covering her face with her palms. "Oh my god." But Jungkook just tilted his head, gazing at her with a warm, increasingly intense smile. Finally, in a voice that was soft yet firm, Yin spoke, without looking at him. "Yes, I want to. I want to do it with you." This time, Jungkook couldn't hide his smile. Warm, sincere, and full of joy. Gently, he lifted Yin's face from his chest, looked into her eyes, and kissed her forehead tenderly. "Thank you, baby," he whispered. After thanking her, his hands stayed gently cupping her cheeks. His thumbs stroked her skin as if trying to soothe her wildly beating heart, though his own wasn't any calmer. Their eyes met, quiet, deep, and full of unspoken meaning. No words were exchanged, only a gaze that spoke volumes. Then slowly, he leaned in and kissed her lightly on the lips. Brief, but enough to steal her breath and make her heart flutter wildly. Before Yin could even process that feeling, Jungkook's eyes scanned her from head to toe. He bit his lower lip slightly, then whispered in her ear, his voice low and laced with desire. "Perfect timing. You're only wearing a towel." His lips brushed her ear as he murmured, "That means I don't even have to take your clothes off, right?" Yin's eyes widened. "Jungkook." But she didn't get the chance to protest further, because Jungkook was already kissing her again, this time deeper, warmer, more intense. Yin's breath hitched, but she responded to his kiss. Her small hands traveled up, gliding over his shoulders as if searching for something to hold on to, something to steady her against the nervousness now melting into soft affection and long-restrained emotions. The sound of the ticking clock and their uneven breathing was all that filled the room. And when Jungkook's hands gently touched her waist, the towel wrapped around her body slowly slipped and fell to the floor. That evening, without grand words or pressure, something finally happened. They came together as husband and wife for the first time. No longer just two people bound by a contract, but two hearts slowly beginning to choose one another. 6 months later. That Sunday evening was wrapped in a soft breeze and an orange sky that gradually faded into a shade of violet. The balcony of their room was filled with the scent of tea. Jungkook and Yin sat together on a cushioned chair, wrapped in a light blanket, sharing a cup of warm tea. Yin leaned comfortably against Jungkook's chest, while his large hand moved gently over Yin's slightly rounded belly. Barely visible from the outside, but to Jungkook, it was everything. 4 months, he murmured softly, his voice raspy and tender, as if still in disbelief. "I still can't believe there's a tiny life growing in here." He placed a soft kiss on the crown of Yin's head. "You're amazing. You know that?" Yin smiled faintly, her hand intertwining with Jungkook's fingers that continued to caress her belly with affection. "Do you think I'll be a good mom?" she asked, her voice laced with quiet worry. "You're breathing. You're alive. And you're already a home to our baby," he whispered into her ear. "That's more than enough." Yin slowly turned her head to meet Jungkook's calm and warm gaze. He smiled, then leaned down and kissed her lips softly, slowly, warmly, and deeply. It wasn't a kiss full of desire, but one full of emotion, as if every second of it conveyed the gratitude and love he couldn't put into words. Afterward, he rested his chin on her shoulder, hugging her from behind. He closed his eyes, savoring the warmth of her body and the peace that filled his chest. "You're getting more beautiful," he said quietly, placing a kiss on her right cheek. Yin chuckled lightly. "I'm getting fatter." "The kind of fat I love the most," he said, rubbing his nose against hers, making Yin giggle. "Fat because you're carrying our blessing." Then, Jungkook lowered his head and kissed her belly for a long moment. His hand continued to caress her gently, and his lips whispered, "Thank you for coming into our lives, little one." Yin smiled, running her fingers softly through her husband's hair. Truthfully, she never expected that the cold and arrogant rival from her past would become such a gentle and loving husband to her now.